and I forgot to hit record on our first session back, and I was like, "Oh shit, that was a really good podcast. Too bad we didn't fucking record it."
Yeah, I did that once myself.
Hey everybody, welcome to tuning into the program. My name is James, with me is Chris, and this is FuelStopChats. It's a podcast where we talk about, well, anything. We try to talk about motorcycles, but not always. So tune in, enjoy, and hope you like it.
Welcome back, everybody. All 30 of you that actually listen to us. Appreciate it. I'm James. Chris is here, and we have a guest with us today, Mr. Greg Stanley. Greg comes to us. I don't believe you're a motorcycle enthusiast as we are.
Nope.
But he has a different kind of wind therapy. I talk about wind therapy on motorcycles, and there's another type of wind therapy. There's not a lot of us that adhere to, but once you do, you absolutely love it, and that's paratrooping. All three of us were in the Army. I was a camo geek, 82nd, 101st, and then a unit called JCSC where I was off with some other groups. Did a little leg time over there in 1st Armored Division. Chris, I guess you were a cryptographer?
Maintaining crypto gear for the mechanized infantry.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to walk too much. We got to ride most places.
But I got to jump in, so that was the nice thing. But we always did a heavy drop because we had our vehicles. Now, did you do time at Side R too?
I did. I was a mole runner at the Underground Pentagon. Yeah. No.
You ever heard of Side R, Greg?
No, can't say that I have.
Okay, we'll get into that in a second because it's actually pretty cool. And then, Greg, I'll throw it over to you. I really didn't even know your history in the military.
My time in the Army, I just did one enlistment back in the early 90s, but I can say that growing up, all I ever wanted to do was join the Army and be a paratrooper. My grandfather was in the very first Airborne Ranger company ever formed in the 40s. And so I grew up idolizing my grandfather. All I ever wanted to do was be a paratrooper. So I enlisted 2 days after my 17th birthday. So
Nice.
yeah, so my time was spent at Fort Bragg. I was a commo guy, just like you. So, sometimes I regret getting out early, but I was so beat up by the time my enlistment was over. I mean, broken backs and broken bones, and I was like, I don't see how I can do this for 20 years. But, you were speaking about Phantom, and I spent 26 years, just as a civilian. And then I found Phantom, and it's completely new life. Completely new life.
So why don't we do a quick introduction on Phantom Airborne? So, like I said, I was a paratrooper. Greg was a paratrooper. Blackie, he was a mole runner. It's a totally different thing, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I'd come across a group called the Phantom Airborne Brigade out of Zephyr Hills, Tampa area of Florida. And what they are is, well, Greg, I'll let you explain. Who are we at Phantom?
Phantom Airborne is a 501c3 nonprofit veteran paratrooper organization. We specialize in, getting veteran paratroopers who are PTSD and disabled and perfectly healthy veterans back under canopy again. The jumps are the really cool part of it. That's the draw, but that's just the catalyst for getting veterans back together with like-minded guys. And, for people who are on the outside, it's difficult to explain, but, becoming a part of Phantom Airborne Brigade is really life-changing for a lot of these veterans, myself included. It has changed my life. It took me from a really dark time in my life, and I've done a complete 180. And I'm not the only one. I can point to probably at least 100 different guys that I know who could tell you the same thing.
Yeah, I joined up with you guys about a year. Well, May. May was my first water jump where I was safety. So just before May, doing a little bit of retraining with you guys to get you to understand that you could trust me in the aircraft, checking off and making sure that, all right, we'll bring him in, but we're going to keep a fucking eye on this guy. So, and they did. I was
Loose
like, all right,
cannon.
you're going in, but you're going to sit over here and don't touch the red button. And that's what I did. But and Greg took me under his wing. Put me through basic airborne refresher. We did some work in the aircraft. He got me up, started showing me the safety stuff, because it's very different from, well, I mean, the fundamentals are the same of what we did in the Army, but the aircraft that we use is a World War II C-47 named the Tico Bell. This bird flew 3 missions. No, well, I know they dropped paratroopers into St. Mary Gallice for D-Day. Then it went back and picked up a couple gliders, I think, and brought those over. Somebody said something about that. Other missions throughout World War II did the Berlin airlift, and had been a very reliable aircraft for 83 years, completely refurbished. It's set up for us to do paratroop drops, but working in a C-130, a C-141 in comparison to a C-47, night and day.
Yeah.
So, Greg got me up to speed on that, and I've been with them, working with them, and helping out, volunteering my time, weekly phone calls and jumps where I can get in there for the past year. Now, Greg, I know you've been there for a while, so.
Yeah. Well, it seems like forever. It's been I've been there 5 years now. I just like you, I found Phantom Airborne online, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's a group of veterans who do static line jump. I'd done a few skydives, but it just wasn't the same for me. And I told my wife, I said, look, I found this veteran group. They do, static line round canopy. I wasn't married to my wife at the time when I was in the military, so she's only heard me talk about being a paratrooper. She had no idea what I was talking about. And I said, can I go do it again? I just want to do it one more time. And she said, sure, if you want to go do it. She came out there to jump with me. And I figured that's what I was going to do. I was going to do one more jump and then, brag to all my buddies about how I got under canopy again. And, I remember packing up my chute out there on the DZ, throwing it over my shoulder like we did when we were in the Army. And I walked off the drop zone, and my wife was standing there at the edge of the drop zone. And, of course, she's all excited to hear about my jump. And she says, so how was it? And I just looked at her, and the only thing I could say to her was, I'm coming back. And she said, I knew you would. I knew you would. So, fast forward to about, it's probably my second or third jump. She said, you're going to be doing this for a long time, aren't you? And I said, God, I hope so. I said, this is super, super cool. I never thought I would find this again. I said, not only do I want to be a member of Phantom for the foreseeable future, I got to find a way to be involved, because I could see all of these volunteers out there working. I could see all the time that people were putting into the place and how passionate they were about it. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be just a jumper. I want to be like those guys right there. So, fast forward 5 years later, and we're so fully entrenched I couldn't walk away if I wanted to at this point.
So, Greg, I have to ask you. You said your wife wasn't married to you when you were,
Right.
serving. Did your wife know the history of the broken backs and broken legs and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Before you sprung it on her that you went, hey, guess what I'm going to do this weekend?
Fortunately, I have a very, very supporting wife. She supports me in anything that I do. She doesn't give me grief about anything whatsoever. So when I said I wanted to go jump out of an airplane, she was like, okay.
Well,
That's awesome.
It's more than that, Chris. You have to understand, his wife is the quartermaster now.
Oh. Fantastic. There you go. You need logistics, man.
Yeah, so we're both so fully entrenched in it right now that, it's, and that's, what, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining. I mean, we love what we do at Phantom Airborne Brigade. We love it. It takes up a ton of our time. Sometimes I put in more work at Phantom during the week than I do my regular 40-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are times that it's taxing, but you know what? It is extremely rewarding. Extremely rewarding.
Yeah. It's always fun to get back together with a bunch of guys, that were in the military, because it is different. The conversations are different. I volunteer at the Gettysburg battlefield, and yesterday we had riders that came in from a couple states, Ohio and Florida and Georgia, and and 2 or 3 of these guys are veterans. And it was funny to watch who clumped together to build these fences at the battlefield. Sure. It was all of us friggin' jarheads and squids and the grunts and the rivalry and the fun poking and you just don't get that anywhere else. And
It takes you back to when you were 19 years old again.
yeah, it does. I mean, it really does. And it was I think what's most interesting for me in talking about a lot of these groups that support veterans, especially guys that suffer with PTSD, and because it's not seen and visible, people always go, "Well, there's nothing wrong with this guy. Like, what's he complaining about?" They don't understand why he might see the world a little differently, or why he might be frustrated. And just being around people that you can talk to openly and comfortably that get it is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. It's kind of like the motorcycle thing, everybody talks about how many percentage of the population or whatever rides motorcycles, and, all walks of life, all different kinds of, socioeconomic backgrounds, doesn't matter. You have that common thing. And when you take that to the next level, and you say, okay, now who served that's here on this ride? It's pretty impressive. And thank you guys for what you're doing for everybody. I talked to a guy yesterday, 82nd, former 82nd guy that, I said he was talking about wanting to get back and do some maybe D-Day reenacting or something like that. And I said, man, you need to give these guys a shout.
Yeah, send him my way.
I told him, and he's a Tampa area native. So I said, look, man, you go down and see your folks and, get a hold of these guys and see what maybe you can get involved with them. So who knows? Maybe we'll get.
And to piggyback on what you were just saying there, we have a lot of members at Phantom who never jump. There's guys that are there for every single jump, and I've never seen them jump out of an aircraft. So to be involved in Phantom Airborne, you do not have to jump. There's plenty of things. I mean, if you're good at operations, if you're an S3 at some point, if you're good at admin, if you're good at, organizing, even if you're just good at manual labor and you can lug parachutes with us, we need volunteers. We always welcome new members. You do not have to jump out of an aircraft. You don't have to.
Yeah, we might not need any more lieutenant colonels, because I think we got enough of them. They seem to want to take charge of every goddamn thing. So
we got about 6 too many. Sorry, Lucian Campillo. We weren't talking about you.
We're not talking about you guys.
Isn't it amazing how they chill out when they get the full bird, though? They're like completely different animals.
Yeah, and you know what the cool thing is about that is I think we're up to we're over 900 members right now, paid members, over 900 members.
Wow.
So you got guys from all walks, just like when you were in the Army. You got guys from all walks of life, from all over the country, all over the world. That we've all served at different times. All of us have different ranks. I mean, we got guys from PFC all the way up to, we've had 1-star generals jumping with us. The funny thing is it's not like the Army. You come out there, this guy was a lieutenant colonel. This guy was a captain. We have so many command sergeant majors out there, it's not even funny. There's no saluting. There's no looking at guys and be like, oh God, that guy was a lieutenant colonel. I mean, I will rag on those guys faster than I will rag on anybody else, and they give it right back too. So I mean, that's that's one of the really cool aspects of being out there. It's we're doing military stuff, but we're no longer in the military.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had a jump last week. I had 3 friends of mine that I hadn't jumped with since 1993 down, and last week was a water jump. I'm allowed to jump according to my wife, but only into the water, and I can't blame her on that because my ass is just broken. Chris, you know me. So yeah, we do water jumps. I think we have 4 scheduled a year. And then every other month we're doing a land jump if you want to do a land. And if you're sitting there, it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine. I'll go back to the 3 guys that jumped with last week. So a friend of mine that I served with at Fort Campbell, she is the command sergeant major of the IG for all of the Army. Master Blaster, did a lot of time at Bragg. I had reached out to her. I was like, Q, let's go. Come on. Let's get back at it. She's like, I'm too old. So I sent her a picture of Freddie. I was like, really? Are you really that old? And she's like, Freddie's loco. I was like, yeah, yeah, there's some truth to that. I think according, how old is he?
86.
Yeah.
Or no.
No, he's
No, I'm
90.
sorry. No, 92. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that was
92.
the other guy that was 86 that hadn't
Yeah.
jumped since 1958 that was on my bird last week. Yeah.
Yep.
1958.
Freddie's 92.
Well, depends. If the FAA is listening, he's not. We're just kidding. But yeah, I had 3 guys out there last week, and I think one of the nicest, or not nicest, one of the coolest things to hear from them was something that I felt. The 3 of them were like, this is probably the best jump I've ever been on. Not just because it's water, but because it was just so relaxed. There's nobody up my ass. I'm not running somewhere to stand somewhere. Yeah, I had to get here at 6 in the morning to manifest for a 12 o'clock jump, but I'm on stick 9. I have to wait for that bird to drop all those people. I get it. We need to all be here at the same time so we can muster. I'm good with that. But and the 3 of them were like, yeah, this has been awesome. My friend Dave's like, I can come. I see myself coming once a year. Chad lives local. I think that he'll be there all the time. My friend Bob, who lives in Indianapolis, he's already paid for his water jump in when's it? August.
August.
Yeah, he's like, no. If I'm going to try to get on every single one, and I will be there. I was like, awesome, dude.
Yeah. I tell guys all the time when I meet paratroopers, a lot of veteran paratroopers, they remember just like we do, where we would sit around and harness all damn day. Then we'd get up on there on a bird and we'd race track all over the place. Then they would cancel our jump. And then, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just, we remember all those bad parts about jumping. And I tell folks all the time, no, we took all the bad parts out.
Yes.
We did. We took all the bad parts out. I mean, if you think about it, we get there, we do sustained airborne training. We rig up our parachutes, we put them on, we jam PI. You might stand around for a few minutes, but we're right on the bird. We take off less than 2 minutes. We're at our target, putting everybody out. And usually by 9 a.m., the guys are sitting underneath the shade tree drinking a beer together.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a whole lot better to be looking forward to a hot dog and a beer than, humping somewhere to get shot at. You know what I mean?
Exactly. There's no 20-mile ruck march to a field exercise afterwards. There's no running to the rally point. I mean, it's relaxed. We take our jobs very serious and what we do very serious,
Yes.
and we have an extremely safe record. But we try to take all the stress out of it that guys remember from their days, in division and being on jump status. We just try to take all that stress out and make it a fun thing.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I was able to jump master last week, and I found it incredible how fast it went. Greg was on the plane with me. As we're taxiing down the runway, he looks at me and goes, 400 AGL, give 6 minutes. I was like, okay, shit. We're not even at altitude. So we're still climbing, and I'm giving jump commands. I give 6 minutes. I tell him to get ready. I stand him up. I go through my commands. This is about I looked at the video. It was about 2 minutes. He's like, you got 1 minute. So that 6 minutes was actually 3. I gave him one. Well, and that 1 minute was really 30 seconds. Because as soon as I gave the 1 minute, he goes, 30 seconds. I was like, all right, shit, 30 seconds. Got the guy in the door. He's out. Boom, 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 boom. Everybody's out. The racetrack was 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Wow. So you did leave some aspects of the military in there. You got 6 minutes. No, 3.
Well, it's better than you got 6 minutes. That's an hour.
4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, usually in the military, they tell you, you got 6 minutes and you can count on racetracking for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah. So, James mentioned earlier that he came out to his first event May of last year. So that was our May water jump. I can tell you that every one of us who are on staff for our water jumps run around like a chicken with our head cut off. I mean, we are just We have a million tasks, a million duties, and of course we have 200 paratroopers' lives in our hands. So, we take our jobs very serious and we're very focused.
Yes.
This guy comes walking up to me on the airfield. I'm getting ready to get on the aircraft for flight 1. This guy comes walking up to me and he says, "Hey, I'm looking for a guy named Greg." And I just turned and looked at him and I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. Can I help you with, sir?" And I'm thinking to myself, "Hurry up, dude. I got to get on this bird." And he goes, "Well, I was sent down here to find you." And I'm like, "Okay, sir, what is it I can help you with?" And he says, "I was told to come down here and jump master." And I'm like, "You know what, man? Look, I don't know you, and I don't really have the time for you right now, but just stay put." So, we got him a little bit of work, to see what he was made of, to see if he had the stuff. And I remember talking with him afterwards and telling him, what the requirements are to be a jump master with Phantom. It's not just to walk up and go, "Hey, I'm a jump master. I want a jump master." I mean, you have to go through, getting recertified again. There's a whole process. There's certain duties you got to pull first, the whole 9 yards. Usually when you tell guys things like that, they go, "Oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting me come out." Now, James, to his credit, I think you've probably been at just about every single jump for the last year, haven't you? Maybe.
Yeah, and every
more.
Wednesday. Yeah, and every weekly call.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
90% of the weekly calls if I'm not at like a work function.
Yep. And then, every time we have jump master training, James is there. So to his credit, I mean, he took it very seriously, and that's the kind of guy we're looking for to be a jump master at Phantom. We're looking for.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Just make
yeah.
sure-
I gotta live with this now forever.
Fuck
Like,
yeah.
come on, man.
Just make sure you send the check that you promised me.
There you go.
It's in the mail.
So, I mean, honestly, to his credit, he's the kind of jump master we're looking for. He took it very seriously, and he said, "Hey, I'm local. I'm going to be here for every single jump. I'm interested, in learning." And he dug in and he did all the dirty work that, most jump masters don't want to do. I was more than happy to get him up in the aircraft for this water jump and go. "All right, jump master, the door is yours."
So I will say this. I went out there for that May water jump, and it hit me right here when somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, can you help buddy rig this guy?" And I look over, and he's in a wheelchair because he's a paraplegic.
Yeah.
So now I got to slide him out of a chair and put a parachute on him. And that motherfucker's like, "Hey, check my leg straps. Move my shit around for me, would you?" I'm like, "No, I ain't touching your shit. You can't feel it anyway. Fuck you. Get on the plane." But we got his chute on him. We got him checked out. Put him in the wheelchair. Brought him out to the plane. And they took him up. They threw him out.
Yep. Aren't those guys badasses, though? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, Chris, I think I told you. I mean, I had that one Ranger out there, double amputee, with a Malinois. Straps his Malinois dog to the D-rings on his reserve parachute, jumps with no legs, but he's got the fake legs, and a dog. I'm like, who does that? That's just some badassery that I don't know if I could ever do myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have quite a few guys that we've thrown out. We have 3 paraplegics that we have thrown out. 2 of those guys have actually earned their Phantom jump wings. Little fact, little side note, after you've done 5 jumps with Phantom, you earn your Phantom jump wings. Just like you did when you're in the Army. You had to do 5 jumps to earn your Army jump wings. After your 5th jump with Phantom, you earn your Phantom jump. We have 2 paraplegics who have done at least 5 jumps.
Yeah, Rob got his 5th, was it last week?
Yeah, it was. And, we have so many guys who are amputees and guys with other, physical disabilities. To me, those guys are the epitome of what we are all about. I mean, if you think about it, it takes a lot of balls and it takes a lot of courage to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, especially at our age. I mean, all of us are average age 50 years old, It takes a lot of courage to do that. But if you think about those guys, think about the courage that it takes to be a paraplegic, have absolutely no control over your exit, how you go out of the aircraft, and if you've been rigged up properly. You put your trust in jump masters like James and myself, and you say, I'm trusting you. Throw me out of the aircraft. I'll steer the parachute down to the water. You know, think about the courage that it takes. Those guys are the epitome of what we are all about. And those guys to me, man.
But yeah, when I saw Rob do that last year, that May water jump, I sat there and my eyes, they watered up because it's just amazing to see the resilience in these people. And that's when I was like, nah, this is my new home. And when I got home, wrote to my wife, she was like, so how was it? I was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm all in. All in. She's like, good. Because I can already see the change in you. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that place changes people. It does, James. I mean, my wife, she knew what a mess I was a few years back before I found Phantom. She'll tell you in a heartbeat, I am a completely different man and a completely different human being.
So the particulars, real quick, it's called Phantom Airborne Brigade. Our website, PhantomAirborne.org.
PhantomAirborne.org.
Yep. If you can find us, if you can't find us, just reach out to FuelStopChats@gmail.com. That goes to me. That goes to Blackie. We'll get you the information. We'll get you in touch, and as long as you have a DD-214 saying that you had gone to a military basic airborne training, and oh, by the way, because I look at our listening, we're global. We have SAS guys jumping with us. We have Royal Canadians jumping with us. I mean, we have, as long as you've gone to a military basic airborne training of whatever country or residence you're from, you can come and jump with us.
Yeah, we have guys from all over the world that come and jump with us. I mean, Canadians all the time. We had a couple of Europeans come this last water jump. Sometimes there's quite a few of them.
Yeah, was it Mario? Is he from Spain?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think so.
Yeah.
Sounds Italian.
But no, I forget he had a Spanish flag on his shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. You talk about the guys that, quadriplegic, paraplegic, whatever. Those people are inspirational because they've made a choice not to be a victim.
Yes.
And to me, that's the story. It's like, and I'm always impressed by those folks. My grandson, watching him overcome his challenges and still be a 7-year-old boy. I think about grown-ups that complain about stuff, and I just, and then I see these guys on James's pictures and videos and stuff, getting out of a wheelchair and getting strapped up and harnessed up and tossed out of a plane. It's like, they made a choice. I'm going to live on. I'm going to live well. I'm going to live all out. And you guys are facilitating them doing that. And, it's just an incredible organization that, I can't give enough good press to.
Yeah, and we talk about the guys who have the physical impairments, mostly because you can see them; they're right there in front of you.
Yeah,
you can see their impairments. What we don't typically talk about, because nobody typically sees them, are the guys who are suffering with PTSD, and they're carrying a lot of stuff from global war on terror, Desert Storm, Somalia, Grenada,
Vietnam.
Panama.
We have guys that are Vietnam vets.
Yep. Most vets, we carry that stuff around with us and we hide it and we don't talk about it and we don't show it, and you can't tell by looking at us. But, there are a lot of guys at Phantom that, have come to me and said, if it weren't for Phantom, I literally would not be here today. They were on suicide watch. They have attempted suicide. They've contemplated it. They have been lost and had no idea what to do with their life. And then they come out to Phantom Airborne, and it's like they have a rebirth. They're almost born again. It brings them back, part of them and part of their life that they have been missing for years. And it literally changes lives. I mean, I don't want to sound like we're trying to overstate it or oversell it. But if you were to come out to one of our events, especially like one of these water jumps where I meet these guys and listen to their stories, I mean, there's no way you can't carry those with you whenever you hear them. There's no way.
You're right, though, man. People don't see the mental illness problem, so they think, well, I don't know what that guy's deal is. He's not missing an arm. What's his deal?
Right.
And it's like, the thing is that that's not something that goes on or off. It doesn't flip on and off like a light switch. It's something that it haunts them 24/7, and devastatingly so. To your point, I mean, these guys are contemplating suicide. They're not able to hold jobs a lot of times. It sickens me to see how many homeless veterans there are, because they couldn't get the help they needed. They couldn't find these kind of organizations, or weren't in a capacity to take advantage of these organizations. And it's those guys that just kind of get swept under the rug. And it's now, do you guys do other activities than the jump? I mean, that's obviously the apex thing you guys do,
Sure.
but activities for veterans that maybe they don't want to jump, but like you said, they could get involved in other ways. Do you guys have any other kind of outreaches that you want to share with people?
Typically like on a water jump weekend, we try to make an entire weekend out of it. So it's not just a, hey, show up for the jump on Saturday morning after you hit the shore, see you later. We have, we do cookouts, we do hangouts, we all meet up on Fridays, we go to dinner together. This past water jump, we had a memorial service for a paratrooper who recently passed away. I think everybody was out there until at least 9 o'clock. We bought dinner for everybody. And it's the small things like that guys appreciate more than anything else. Now, you can say, hey, we're putting on a big banquet on such and such date. Guys get all dressed up and come in. And guys appreciate that. But you know what they like more than anything else is the fact that after an event, everybody hangs out. Everybody has beers together. We pound blood wings into each other. We swap war stories. We tell lies. We laugh at each other. We have a good time. And that is, that probably reaches guys more than the jump itself,
Yeah.
When you crank up the grill and you got the burgers out there and they're, cooler beer or just water, because a lot of us don't drink, it's just those stories. It's
for sure.
It's that camaraderie. For me, being a part of Phantom is helping me in a lot of different aspects of the things that I have compartmentalized in my life. So, I joined the Army when I was 18 years old. Joined went straight basic AIT Airborne school, straight to the 82nd. So I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm in the 82nd. And I was pretty much a paratrooper aside from 2 years all the way until I was 31, 32 years old when I got out 13 years later. So for me, I look at your formidable years of growth are that senior year of high school through a couple years after college. Let's call it 26. So from 17 to 26, that is who you become. Everything that takes place, the relationships that you make, you call it networking, but the friends that you make in that time frame, if you think about the friends that you've made between 17 years old and 26 years old in comparison to the friends that you've made over the last 10 years, how do they weigh against each other? And I'm not just talking military. I'm talking just everybody. And I believe that because that mentality of, I was a paratrooper. I was a fucking paratrooper. And being with those people that were like that, and then not having it anymore because I unplugged. I made the decision that I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to leave the military because I want to start a family. You miss that. And you will get to a point where it's like, well, shit, where did all that go? And yeah, I catch up with my friends and we tell lies to each other and we make our wives laugh at the stories that we've done. Oh, this sumbitch was outside naked, passed out because he forgot the room key to his dorm or to his, to the barracks, whatever. But those stories are one thing, but being able to be with like-minded people. It's cliche to say it that way, but they are like-minded people. I don't have to worry about offending somebody because I say something, because
Yeah.
it's a very different group. It's a military
Yeah.
group. We're
Yeah.
going to talk shit, and it's going to be
Yeah.
really, really yeah, politically incorrect. That's the word.
There you go.
I'm trying to
Just
fucking
leave it at
think of
that.
it.
Yep.
Yep. It because that's the military way. I mean, Chris, I want to go back to Side R, being a mole runner. There is a certain type of group of people that are doing that kind of job. What can you describe of that job?
I want to hear this.
If you've never heard of Side R, it's
You're not supposed to talk about it, but
it's on the website. There's a website. They have a website now.
I know, and it showed up in a book.
Yeah.
It showed up in a book not long ago, and somebody was talking about the location and mission, and your so when your mission is not the same as it was when you're mechanized infantry, but when your mission is a little bit different and a little bit more focused on the hows and the whys and the mechanics behind those movements. It changes the way you think about things for sure. It definitely changes the way you think about politics for sure. And the one thing that James said that I wanted to come back to is your inability to have an open conversation with someone that hasn't had that experience. It really creates these barriers. And when you get out and you separate from the military, you have to kind of go through this whole rebirth again. It's like, what am I going to develop into? And some guys at church were talking about this. It's like, everybody's identified by what they do. The first question out of people's mouths when you meet them and start talking, what do you do for a living? What I do has nothing to do with who I am.
Unless you live in St. Louis, where the first question is, what high school did you go to?
High school. You're just banging on me all over the place, aren't you? All right. So St. Louis native, whatever. Go Cards. But, I think it's something that you guys are, the gap that you're filling is that transitional gap that most people don't get. Because let's face it, man, as soon as you get the Echo Tango suitcase notification, you start thinking about, okay, what am I going to do now? And they say, oh, we're going to give you these transition classes, and we're going to give you these, I don't want to bang on the military, but let me tell you, that transition class, that is, did you get a medical and did the dentist sign off on your shit? And it's like, thanks, buddy.
Garbage.
Yeah, and here you are. Welcome to life after the military. And that transition period, it'd be great if there was an organization that would say, dude, let me walk you through how I survived that transition. Let me walk you through how I translated these skills into, commercial life, or something to that effect. And people that have actually done that. Because again, you go back to, well, who's done that? Not a lot of people have done that, so how did you successfully navigate that transition? And I think that's a piece that's missing. For me, it was, you carry these clearances, and so what do? You gravitate to jobs where you can leverage those clearances. But what does that do? It just means that you're extending the amount of time in your life that you can't talk about what you do for a living. It's like my wife said, we've been married for 37 years. She said, I've heard you talk in your sleep, but I've never heard you talk about work in your sleep. And I was like, the fear of big rocks into little rocks, it's compelling. And it'll prevent you from saying things you're not supposed to say. But in 2056, my memoirs are going to get. I'm going to write a book.
It's funny. I did some time with some different agencies over in Bosnia, and it's one of those you can't tell anybody what we're doing situations. Right. And my wife's like, "What do you do?" I was like, "I can't." Yeah. If I tell you, I got to kill you. Ha, ha, ha. No, I just can't fucking tell you. Sitting here watching, I forget what it was. It was some kind of CNN program, and they're talking about missions that could have gone awry. And I was like, oh, I like that kind of shit. And I'm watching it, and they're talking about, some certain key figures within the Republic of Srpska, and I was like, oh, yeah, I remember running into them. And then they were talking about some various units that I was a part of. I was like, wait a minute. this is my mission. Wait a minute. And they
Yeah.
went through one of the times that we actually had to go after somebody that we call them a piffwick. They were there we were hunting them for war crimes, and this shit went sideways on the mission. I was like, I was there. I didn't know we could talk about this now.
Oh yeah, several
CNN.
times. I've been watching movies before where, after your TS you get those slashes, right?
Yeah.
And several of those are to never be spoken about. And I've seen these movies where they not only did they use the 2-letter designator, they freaking used the words.
Yeah.
Like who, how, who, what? How did they get away with that? So
Yeah,
anyway,
my mouth dropped first time I heard somebody talk about DevGru on a radio program. I was like,
yeah, that'd make you tune in.
yeah,
No, but I think again, going back to the transition period, and going back to, because there's a mentality that you have to have when you're in the military that you need to get rid of, unless you're if you're a bodyguard, a hitman, Secret Service, something like that, maybe you can keep some of that mentality. But there's a lot of that mentality that you got to you got to dial it back a notch or two, as they would say up in Letterkenny. Dial it back a notch or two. That people around you have. This is the other thing that's interesting too, just from an observation of an old guy looking back at the past 40 years or so. You have to understand that they have no point of reference. You could be standing there talking Mandarin Chinese for all they care. And they don't have that point of reference, so they don't really care. So the stories, they don't want to hear about it. The fact that you were at this part of the world or that part of the world sounds like you're just bragging about something. It's like, I'm not bragging. It's just where I was when this event happened. It's like, I can't tell you how many times I've told a story about, something that happened in Germany, or we took a trip down to, France, or we were doing something, and people are like, It's like, dude, it's just where I was. I'm not no rich guy. I was a freaking green suitor, I had no money,
Yeah.
We're just fortunate enough that they ran those tours on the weekends that you could spend $60 on, and AFARTs and whatever would put together something that you could do. Outdoor Rec would do some skiing thing, and it happened to be in Innsbruck or something, and yes, we got to experience some pretty unique things, but those are the cool things we got to experience. There's other things we got to experience, not so cool,
Sure.
that everybody just kind of fences off. And it's like, when you learn to navigate around that, and you start making that transition, every once in a while you get lucky and you run into somebody in your life, right? And you go, this guy I can connect with.
Yep.
And
Somebody you can relate to.
that's how James and I, became fast friends and have been friends for years. And I was in totally, speaking of transitions, I totally transitioned career wise, and I was at the International Roofing Expo down in San Antonio, Texas, and a buddy of mine that I was in the military with a long time ago lives in Corpus Christi, and I said, dude, I'm close again. Is there any chance we could meet for dinner? And it was like it never stopped.
Yeah.
We got together, we had dinner, we did the family catch up thing, and he goes, what time is it? I don't know. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and it just flew by. So I guess the message here is reach out to your guys. Know that there are guys out there that give a shit. They'll answer the phone. They'll talk to you. They care about you. And that there are guys that have made the transition that will help you. How can I offer, a transition conversation to a kid, that's just getting out of the military or separating, and how do you turn that into a career or whatever? However you can help one of these fellow guys out or gals, help them out,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like you were saying earlier, is you're surrounded by all these military people whenever you're in service, and then one day you're just separated from that, and you're back in the civilian population. You're used to being around all these military people who act a certain way, who talk a certain way. They have lived the same experiences as you, and now suddenly you're back in civilian population, and you're not surrounded by those kind of folks anymore, and you can feel a little bit lost. I said in an interview, someone was asking me about that in an interview about 2 years ago, and and my answer to that was, I got out in 90. My enlistment was up in '99. When I left, I was like, "Goodbye, Army. I'm done with you." But I spent all these years kind of feeling like, did I do the right thing? I mean, I feel like I miss it sometimes, but then I think about it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't miss getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't miss the first sergeant telling me on Friday we're going to do a 12-mile fun run. I don't miss being deployed around the world. You don't miss being shot at. You don't miss being screamed at. You don't miss poor leadership. But for some reason, you miss the Army. You're like, what? I don't understand. Fast forward years later, I show up out at Phantom. And it was like, this light bulb goes off in my head. I'm like, you know what? This is what I was missing. These guys, this camaraderie, doing cool stuff, telling war stories and having a good old time. This is what I was missing. I wasn't missing all that other stuff. This is what I was missing. And, I feel like a lot of guys come out to Phantom and they see that almost immediately. So I know it's not just me. But they come out and they see that and they want to be a part of something. And maybe that's why it's so life-changing for people.
No, I think the camaraderie, man, there's a code also that you live by. And when you're dropped out of that environment and your expectation, because like James said, there's a formative years, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, right? You expect your guy next door to behave and live on the same code you do. And you find
they don't, though, do they?
They don't. And you're like, what's wrong with this guy? Because that code's not there. Those are the things about the military that make it special. Yeah. I used to, the battalion commander getting up deciding he wanted to run the vineyards, it's like, is it really necessary, to do, 4 hours of freaking trekking up and down these hills and it's like, necessary. Yeah, it's I don't know, but or when you come back from Europe or other places, and the biggest complaint is that you didn't shine your shoes enough, or you don't have enough crease in your uniform. It's like, really, that's really what's important to you? Like maybe doing my job is important.
Make sure the vehicles are online in the motor pool. Got to be laser straight.
Yeah. And I noticed
the motor pool line.
You painted that HQ9 on the front of that bumper, and you put it on the wrong friggin' side, and it was 1 inch lower than the one on the. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways for me for Phantom, being removed from the military and looking for that type of environment for it, not even knowing that I needed it, but being used to being put in environments where, and I live in Tampa, and it just seems to be a lot in Tampa where there's a lot of chest thumping. There's a lot of, a lot of flexing. When you go to meet people, it's a lot of flexing. I don't know why, but I feel that. And I had an apprehension going to Phantom. I was like, oh God, what am I going to have to deal with going here? Is it going to just be a bunch of fucking dicks that are just like, I'm better than you?
Yeah.
I've never felt it.
No.
Never felt it.
And you never will, James. And I'll tell you what, most guys don't walk around bragging about where they served or where they did their deployments and what their rank is. I mean, 99% of the guys, I have no idea what their rank even was in the military. Like, they don't wear it, they don't display it.
Nope.
So we have guys who were SF for a very long time. We have Delta guys out there. You wouldn't know it.
Nope.
We have tons of Rangers. And we
got
have
too many
admin
Rangers.
specialists.
I'll say it. We have too many Rangers.
I mean, and all the way down to, we have people who were admin specialists, or they
Yeah.
were, they were light wheel vehicle mechanics. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody walks up to you and says, "Hey, man, what was your MOS?" Nobody cares what you did in the military. What they care about is the fact that you're here now.
I don't
Yeah.
think anybody's asked me what my MOS was. I think you're probably hearing the first time from me saying I was a commo geek.
No, you've told me that before, because I was too. I was commo myself.
Okay.
I remember when I meet commo guys. I have no idea what your rank was. No idea. I've never asked you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's not who we are. It's just what we did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who defines? How do you define that person? If you ask somebody, "You ever meet James? What kind of guy is he?" Well, he was a commo guy. He was a 3120, and he was a sergeant. And nobody says that.
No, usually what they say is he was an asshole, but that's just me.
Yeah.
That's just a term of endearment, James.
Yeah.
That's
I
it's just a term of
I
endearment.
go back and forth between asshole and dickhead. So it's just, it's varying degrees.
I hear you, man.
Yeah. Our good friend Lucian Campillo. He did an interview a couple years back, and he was talking about the paratroopers at Phantom Airborne Brigade, and I'm going to steal this from him, because it really, whenever I heard it in the interview, I was like, wow, yeah, that's it right there. He was talking about veterans, and especially veterans our age. Most of them are perfectly content with just sitting down at the VFW, smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, telling war stories, and waiting to die. That's not the folks at Phantom. To put it in Lucian's words, he said, people at Phantom like to keep the colors shiny and bright. And that really resonated with me whenever he said that. And, I think it's been 2 or 3 years ago that he did that interview, and I still think about that all the time. That's what makes these guys special. They're not just saying, "Hey, guys, I'm a veteran, recognize me." They're coming out there, they're putting in the hard time, they're volunteering, they're working, they're doing something as crazy, insane, and fun as jumping out of, airplanes. I'm proud to be a part of a veterans organization where the guys are keeping the colors shiny and bright. It's really cool to think of it that way.
I like that a lot, man. That's a great line. It's the best of life, and it's the best way to live life, as opposed to just existing.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to end it on that, because otherwise I'm just going to end up saying something that just fucking ruins it all. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Greg, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you hopping on here. I know that we had talked about this
I appreciate you guys
earlier this
having
week.
me. Thank you. This has been fun. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for taking the time. It's fantastic conversation. I could do this a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to hop on your podcast. I know that you have a podcast. What's your podcast?
Phantom Airborne all the way.
Oh, there you go. So you'll hear Blackie and I on that at some point. And I'd love to be able to get on there with you. Or if you just want to take this one and throw it up on your podcast, and you can use this. I don't care. It's not like any of us are getting paid for this shit anyway.
Well, not to mention the fact it's possible that you could actually ride a motorcycle to a Phantom event.
Very true.
There you go.
I'm just
We have
saying.
plenty of guys who,
Well,
we have plenty of guys who do.
I'll say this, and Chris, you're going to have to come down to one of our land jumps just to go inside the rigger shed, because the guy that owns the parachute company where we store all of our, I don't know. He has to have a motorcycle dealer's license at this point. He probably has 20 to 30 motorcycles inside in the middle of the warehouse where people are packing parachutes. He's got everything from Triumphs to Ducatis to Goldwings to Harleys. You name it, it's in there. It could be, it's.
I hear the best part of his collection is at his house, though. I've never been to his house, but I hear the best part of his collection is at home.
Really? I thought that was everything there. Maybe it was like the wife didn't want it at home, so he had it there.
Oh no, I've heard.
He
I've
ran
heard
out of room at home.
Good.
I've heard about old Indian motorcycles and the whole 9 yards there. I mean, like, he's got an impressive collection of rare stuff.
like museum quality shit too. It's
Yeah.
really. I go in there, I'm like, and everything's got an up-to-date plate on it. It's all ready to go.
Yeah, he
Nice.
rides them all.
He rides all of them.
That's the best part. That's the best part. They're not meant to sit around and get rusty. Neither are we.
Neither are we. All right.
So thank you guys to Phantom Airborne.
I did it right, finally. Again, Greg, thank you so much for being here. Blackie, as always, good catching up with you. Again, to our 30 listeners, hopefully you're still all there. Listen up for another podcast the next couple weeks. Of course, check us out on YouTube, the podcast, Facebook, everywhere else. Until then, Ryder out.
Ryder out. Love you, brother.
Bye.